This fun. Hey, I got something to say. There is nothing better than being live. Come on. Isn't it awesome? You never know what's going to happen. So, my next guest, we're going to figure it out one way or the other. Debbie Brown. First time doing Instagram, but she thought we had it all figured out. To do is just take a few minutes and bam, she's in business. Isn't that incredible? You just never know.
Here I am.
And there she is. Woo-hoo!
Whoa, that was just a tech glitch. That wasn't for me.
Well, you know what? I'm telling you, it's good because I was just talking about, while we were trying to figure this out, my friend saying, like, well, that's kind of reaching high, the 10x versus 10. I'm like, I don't care. If I go for things and I don't get it, I'll just try again.
Yeah, cool.
And that's what it's all about.
Well,
and when we do stuff like this, that it doesn't work out, you're giving permission to other people to try new things and to not be perfect. So,
yeah,
love it. It was perfect timing. Yay! I want to tell them a little bit about you, Debbie Brown. Debbie is a registered nurse, which we've never had this on before, who has taken a keen interest in helping women transition. So men, if you're watching, help your women through perimenopause and menopause. With her virtual consultations, the one thing she always stresses to her clients is they are not meant to suffer. And she's always been advocating for many years a natural approach to hormone balancing. Welcome, Debbie. I can tell you, as far as first, this is another first.
Perfect.
Never.
Well, thanks for
in over
inviting me
3
on,
years.
Sandy.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Hey.
3 years we've never had somebody on with this. So you start out, let's just go with this one. You are not meant to suffer.
Right.
So let's just dive in. What was that the one statement you wanted to get out to women around the world?
Well, I think, with women who are suffering through perimenopause and menopause are suffering because they do not know where to turn for help. Medical doctors maybe receive an hour or so training in menopause in their medical school, 4 years of medical school, and almost none of them know anything about perimenopause. I remember I did a consult from a woman in Baltimore not too long ago, and she was doing a phone consult with her doctor. There was a locum fill-in for her doctor. She goes, I think I'm in perimenopause. And he says, I've never heard that term before. And I thought, oh my God, and there's just not enough research. There's lack of knowledge in our medical community of what to do with women who are having problems with hormones. And I can remember when I had my physical office, and I had that physical office many years ago, a woman came into me and she'd been to her doctor complaining about the anxiety, the depression, the sleepless nights. I'm so tired, blah, 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 goes on and on. She says, well, I'm going to write you a prescription for Prozac. And she came to me and she goes, I don't think I'm Prozac deficient. And she wasn't. We worked on her hormones, we worked on her adrenals, and it just, things turned around so easily for her. And you think about it, like I think it's 70% of all antidepressants are prescribed to women, and that percentage goes up when they're in perimenopause into menopause. So I don't know how many women on the podcast here are actually in perimenopause, and perimenopause starts, maybe mid 30s, early 40s. It continues until you go that 12 months without a period, and then you can graduate. You're menopausal, postmenopausal. Just because you reached the menopause at 12 months of the period does not mean magically your symptoms are going to go away. You could be having hot flashes. You could be having night sweats. You could be having the fatigue, the irritability. And those signs are just your body telling you something's not quite right. And when the doctors tell you, this is part of being female, this is part of getting older, suck it up, buttercup, don't settle for that. I read something the other day that never pick a fight with a woman over 40 because she's full of anger and she's sick of everybody's shit. And it's so true, you know, and women who are perimenopausal, you know, frequently have low tolerance to, anything that's put her way. She's overwhelmed, she's working, she's got kids, she's got
Yeah.
a husband, she's got financial, there's environmental stress, there's so much going on. She's got this world on top of her shoulders, and eventually she's going to crack, you know, and hormones have a big part of that. When hormones go awry, you know, there's nothing you can do. You know, exercise a little bit, eating better can help. But if you don't balance your hormones, you know, you're going to suffer, and unnecessarily. You know, and Sandy, the problem too is women don't talk about this enough. They don't share their experiences because they figure they have to be strong pillars. They can't complain of, all these things that are going on. You know, and it's just unfortunate. And there's so many things you can do to sort of resurrect your hormones. You work on your adrenals. You know, it's just, there's so many layers to this, but there's so much you can do.
All right, so let's just stop right there because we got some questions coming in here, Debbie, which I knew we would, not just from the women, but the men are like, help my life, which kudos to them for realizing,
yes.
you know, not just suck it up. So let me just get some of these out here. And the first one is what you said. They go to their doctor. We always call them Sally Bell. And the doctor wants to put them on medication, and it's their OBGYN. How can they, and the doctor realizes it's perimenopause. But this person's like, I don't know if I want to take that medication. How do I know if I need the medication or I should be doing something else more natural?
Right. Okay. So perimenopause, we see a lot of anxiety. We see a lot of depression, low moods, just feel like your get up and go leaves you. And that's the sort of the number one thing that doctors prescribe is the SSRIs, these antidepressants. And, basically this is masking symptoms rather than working on the underlying cause. And when you're in perimenopause, the main hormone that's taken a plummet is progesterone. And progesterone's produced in the ovaries after you ovulate. And when you're in perimenopause, you can have a period every 28 days. Does not mean you've ovulated. And this is why it's more difficult to get pregnant in your 40s. If you don't ovulate, you don't produce progesterone. Progesterone is your happy hormone. It's good for it stimulates GABA receptors in your brain. It calms your brain. It sharpens your brain. Progesterone is just a wonderful hormone. And also, when you're lacking progesterone in perimenopause, this can give rise to heavy periods because progesterone thins the lining of the uterus. And if you have too much estrogen, which you do in perimenopause, the lining of the uterus thickens, and then you get these heavy, clotty periods. End up with, changing your tampons every couple hours. You're flooding, it's just what happens. So no, antidepressants are not always the answer. Not to say that they're never needed. There's situations maybe they are needed, but they're overused in female population. And you look at the common denominator. What's happening in your late 30s, 40s, and 50s is hormones are changing a lot.
So is there, which I kind of know the answer from talking to you beforehand, but another one, Betty Boop wants to know. Is there a blood test to figure out what she does and doesn't need?
Okay. An interesting question. When you do blood tests, it measures how much of the hormone is actually circulating in your bloodstream. Hormones can be attached to binding globulins, they're called, and then they have to be released into the cellular tissues where they do their job. They knock on the cells. Can I come in? Yes, you can. Okay. Now, my preference to doing hormone testing is saliva, because saliva tells you how much of the hormone gets down to the cellular level, and that's where it needs to be to do its job. So I actually work with a lab out of Oregon called the ZRT laboratory, and that's where I send my samples. Most women are testing. Yeah, and they can give you a really good, and when you're perimenopausal, sometimes it's a shot in the dark, and symptoms tell us a lot more sometimes than doing hormone testing, because it's just a kind of, again, when you're in perimenopause, hormones are fluctuating so much. So you can test a baseline. You can look at if you're menopausal or think you're going to menopausal or in menopause. You can look at something that's called the follicle stimulating hormone to see that start to rise. But no, it's just a shot in the dark. You can ask for hormone testing, but one of the ones I do ask my women to ask their doctors for is ferritin levels. Ferritin is your iron stores, which is commonly depleted in perimenopause because of the heavier periods. Sometimes you might have gut issues, like a piece of absorption of iron in your gut. So ferritin symptoms, low ferritin symptoms cause irritability, unexplained fatigue, heart palpitations, aches and pains, especially in your lower legs. It can cause ringing in your ears. And the thing that just grates me is that when you look at a lab report and you see the range of normals, ferritin goes from 18 to 296. So if you're sitting at a ferritin level of 20, your doctor's going to tell you that's fine. It's not. There's a difference between normal range and optimal. When you have low ferritin, you need to bring it up, and optimally you bring it up to 80 for your thyroid to work properly and up to 100 for your hair follicles to respond.
Oh.
So a lot of times women with low ferritin levels start shedding their hair, and it's concerning because they're crown of glory. You start losing your hair, I think, what the heck's going on here? But the first thing, look at your ferritin levels. It's really, really important. And then it's really important what type of ferritin or iron supplement you take, because they're not all created equally. There's so much garbage out there that causes bloating and constipation, gut issues. If you get a good quality iron supplement, if you need it, don't take iron unless you need it. But most women in perimenopause need a little touch of it. Yeah, it makes a huge difference, because I can remember years ago, working with women, and you work on their adrenals, you work on their hormones, they're still dragging it. What the heck's going on? Oh, ding ding, let's check your ferritin levels. And if doctors agrees, oh, sure enough, ferritin levels are in the basement.
And I went through this a while ago, but I was really fortunate, and I was trying to remember what he recommended. My doctor was like, okay, let's try these. And it was just things I don't even know that I got at Whole Foods or whatever, 2 or 3 different natural supplements. And for me, it changed my world. And I can't remember what they were.
It's probably black cohosh, could be Vitex, a lot of different herbal supplements that can help some women, but they don't work for all women. So you're one of the lucky ones, Sandy, where just a little bit of herbal support helped you out. And often, women, when they need hormones, and progesterone is the first one they need. I prefer the creams. You put the cream on, they absorb very quickly, but you should be working with a practitioner, because more is not better when it comes to progesterone. When I started working with women, I would recommend the progesterone cream. They use it twice a day, like I recommended, and then they felt good. Oh, I'm going to feel even better. Yes, I'm going to slather my body with it, and it down regulates receptors. You feel bloated, you feel cranky. So more is not better, but progesterone is usually a missing link. The other thing for women is magnesium. Most of us are deficient in magnesium, and magnesium is a calming mineral. It's good for anxiety. It's good for sleep. It's good for muscle aches and pains. It's good for so many different things. There's several different types of magnesium out there, and usually when I recommend magnesium, I recommend a magnesium bisglycinate, because it's easily absorbed in the gut. It doesn't disturb the gut. So if you do a magnesium oxide, sometimes it can cause a lot of diarrhea and loose stools, etc. So so magnesium bisglycinate is the best. And the other thing that nobody ever escapes my vitamin D lecture when I do a consultation. I figure about 90, and I'm in Canada, 97% of Canadians are deficient in vitamin D. And probably if you're in the northern or eastern part of the US, you're probably quite deficient in vitamin D as well. And vitamin D is vital for the immune system. But, low vitamin D levels can mimic symptoms of seasonal affective disorder. Just feeling blah, feeling blue, feeling down, etc. Yeah, and there's also a link between low vitamin D and hypothyroidism. And low functioning thyroid is probably one of the most underdiagnosed conditions for females. So vitamin D, and I test my vitamin D levels every year, and I need in the winter 8,000 international units of vitamin D. In the summer, I take about 4,000. And I don't wear sunscreen. Rarely do I wear sunscreen, because it blocks the conversion in my skin. I think it's quite toxic, most of it. It's just
another podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. But even they're showing that higher levels of vitamin D decrease the morbidity and mortality when it came to COVID. And African
Yeah, I
Americans have
didn't
dark skin,
do that. Yeah.
low levels of vitamin D. So not everybody's the same. That's why I test my vitamin D levels to see how much vitamin D I need to optimize my body.
All
And
right. So
also
yeah.
one more thing, without
Okay. You
magnesium,
go.
you can't utilize vitamin D. They go hand in hand.
Good
So you need
to know.
magnesium. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So here's the deal, and this is a very good question. They're asking it in all different ways. You hear this is good for you, and then people go buy it, and they, like you said, it could be the best way to take it. Maybe it's not absorbing. Maybe it's something. Before you take any supplement, should you get tested to see what you need, like whether it is D or magnesium or E or anything? Should you get tested?
I mean, I'd like to see vitamin D tested and like to see ferritin levels tested before you start supplementing. Magnesium, I think most of us are deficient in magnesium because they don't crop rotate. They don't put minerals back in the soils anymore. And to do a serum magnesium level, it doesn't tell you how much magnesium is deficient in your cellular level. And that's the difference. If you're low normal magnesium in your blood work, yeah, you're really low intracellularly. Yeah. But yeah, for sure.
So, but when you say you get tested every year for vitamin D, right?
Yeah.
Is that the swab? Is that how you're getting tested?
No, when I use ZRT lab in Oregon, and it's called a blood spot test. So they give you the little pin thing, and you prick your finger, and you drop drops of blood on a block paper. Yeah, easy peasy to do. But most, if you ask your doctors, they can order it as well. But you want your D level up to about 80 at least. Yeah, depending on which lab you're using.
So a lot of women are commenting on this, which you said at the beginning, Debbie, and I think it's really freeing to bring this up, is when it's perimenopause, they feel a couple things. One, are they too young to be going through it? Number two, you're sure it's it because, like you said, it's not all the signs are there. Is it just life? And they almost feel guilty or bad that they can't just suck it up, work it out, breathe, meditate, eat healthy, and it goes away. And I think that actually is more prominent in people that do care for themselves, because they go, wait a minute, I should be able to do this. I eat right, I exercise, I meditate. And so they don't tell other people because they think they're failing at something.
Oh, I love that you said that, Sandy. It's so true. It's so true. And women feel like they're failures when they have to actually reach out for help. And, you can do all the exercise in the world. Yeah, it is so ridiculous. You can do all the exercise in the world. You can eat healthy. You can take your multivite every day. This might not be enough to resurrect your hormones. 20% of women really suffer through that transition in perimenopause. 20% of women breeze through it. They don't know what, they've never had PMS in their life. And the ones in between, their life's disrupted, but they still carry on, but they don't like how they're feeling. And, boy, we need to feel good. When I'm talking to a woman in her 50s and says, my doctor says it's just part of getting older. I said, tell me that when you're 100. Don't tell me that now. You're not old. And even, my oldest client was 84, and she'd been suffering from hot flashes and night sweats for 30 years because her doctor said she had a history of a mild stroke when she was in her 40s, and probably because she was on a birth control pill, or I don't know what she was on. But anyways, he said, you can't ever do hormones. Well, I put her on a little bit of progesterone cream and what's called a phytoestrogen cream, and within 3 or 4 days, her hot flashes, night sweats left her. She suffered that many years. We are so dismissed in our healthcare system. Women are very dismissed. A lot of women, and when I do my consult, they end up in tears because they feel now they're finally being heard.
Yeah.
Somebody's listening. Yeah, and making sense of the symptoms, which to me is really, really important.
Yeah, and it reminds me, which is a whole nother thing, but thank God it's getting a little bit better with the stigma of mental health issues. But a lot of the women feel as if, oh no, if I can't just solve this myself with some of my coaching or therapists that I've even failed. I've heard this say, I've even failed at therapy. Do you know what I mean? And again, it's the pressure they're putting on themselves. Like,
Yeah,
it's crazy. But then
it is
again,
crazy.
because you do have males in your life, and there's just no way they can possibly understand.
No.
Even to this day, it's sad, but you just feel like I'm supposed to just suck it up, or I'm making
Right.
this up, or just get over yourself.
Oh,
Even to this
right.
day, you know that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm glad you picked up the male or spoke about the male aspect, because it affects relationships like crazy. It does. You know, and men, if you're out there listening, you have to have more empathy as a woman's going through perimenopause. And I almost feel like when I was in my perimenopause, and I was one of the 20% that was really messed up, and I was emergency room nurse, had nothing to do with hormones. I had anxiety, had depression. You looked at me the wrong way, and I had anger, horrible anger that I couldn't control. It almost felt like aliens had inhabited my body, and I had no control of what came out of my mouth. And my doctor, and I had heart palpitations, I had aches and pains everywhere. My doctor sent me to a rheumatologist. Everything's fine there. A cardiologist, yeah, you have what's called idiopathic arrhythmias, not going to hurt you. And went back to my doctor. He goes, I don't know what's wrong. And he goes, come and see me when you're 2 years postmenopausal. And I'm thinking, show me the bridge. I can't do this, you know, for another 10 years. I cannot do
Yeah.
this. And that's when I started my own journey to learn about hormones. I attended several American Academy Anti-Aging conferences. We talked, 7 days about hormones and adrenals and thyroid. And when I balanced my hormones and worked on my adrenals, the aliens left me. So when I hear women talk about their symptoms, I can, I know what you're feeling. I've been there. I've done that. There's hope. So, and it does affect relationships. And I can remember one woman telling me, my husband's in the shower, he's washing his hair, and I can hear the squeak of his hair, and it's driving me nuts, And just the fact that my husband's breathing is bothering me, is irritating. So yeah, tell me it does. And then sex drive, when women get in, and 95% of women I do talk to in my consultations have lost their sex drive. 95% of them. Mind you, it could be hormone imbalance. Could it be their adrenals? Could it be low ferritin levels? Could it be low vitamin D? Omega-3 fatty acids are really important. There's so many things, to look at when the libido is crashing. Or vaginal dryness, irritation.
I want to repeat this because some people are joining in late, and don't worry if you miss some of it, it will be recorded. We'll put it on all platforms. But let's get to another one of the big questions. What are some signs that you're in perimenopause? And two, which is a big range, what age does it start at?
Okay.
Those are 2 questions.
Sure. Yep. Perimenopause can start your mid to late 30s, and it continues. So you've gone that 12-month little period. Typical signs of perimenopause, all of a sudden, the first few signs, you get a little bit more PMS with your periods. The breast tenderness can start. Then you can get, the heavier periods. There could be periods that are closer together or further apart. You can get hot flashes, night sweats, weight gain around the middle is very common, and sleep disturbances. The fact you fall asleep and you feel like you have an alarm clock that goes off in your brain. Say 3 o'clock in the morning, it's time to get up, and you're tired but wired. It could be, again, loss of libido, like I mentioned before, the aches and pains in your body, the heart palpitations. It just goes on and on. But the mood changes are very, very common. With the anxiety, the depression, the angry outbursts, very, very common. Sleep disturbances as well.
Okay.
But hot flashes.
Okay, so now, go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hot flashes and night sweats are the ones that, the typical menopausal symptoms you think about, but there's so many other symptoms in between. Foggy brain syndrome. Oh my gosh, that's probably one of the bigger ones I hear too.
Yep.
Loss of your memory. Yeah, trying to find that word. Where did it go? And it's disconcerting for women, because most women are still working in their 40s, and if they're at a meeting and they're trying to say something, they lose their train of thought. So it really affects their confidence as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So now let's move forward. Now you're in menopause. Now what? Okay.
Now you're in menopause. That's just a day in time. That's 12 months of the period. Doesn't magically mean that your symptoms are going to go away. In fact, they can worsen. When you're in menopause, estrogen levels start to drop a little bit, but progesterone levels are really at the bottom. They're right in the basement. And when you're in menopause, the ovaries are on sort of a permanent vacation now. They've done their job. Now they're going to sleep. So what takes over is production of hormones in your adrenal glands. These are the little tiny glands that sit on top of your kidneys. The main reason for being there is to produce stress hormones. And the main stress hormone we think about is cortisol. What does cortisol need for its production is progesterone. And progesterone is made in your adrenals as well. So if you're under a lot of stress and you're pushing out all this cortisol, you know, because you're in fight and flight, you're robbing your body of even the progesterone made in your adrenals now. So your symptoms can get worse. Estrogen also is made in the adrenals. You know, for me, it wasn't until I was about 63 that I needed to add estrogen back in my body. I went all those years without estrogen. Always progesterone. I've been on progesterone since I was 46 probably. And the reason why I'm still on progesterone is that I don't have symptoms anymore. My hormones are balanced. Progesterone is protective of your bones. It produces osteoblasts, which are the new building blocks of the bones. It's very neuroprotective, so it protects your brain, and it also protects your breasts. We still have environmental estrogens, xenoestrogens floating around, and you know they can attach to fat cells and they can cause havoc in our body. So there's lots of reasons I'm still on progesterone. In fact, it helps with sleep and everything else. But estrogen, I added a little bit of topical estrogen. I like the creams better than anything you put in your mouth, because if you take an oral estrogen, the first passes the gut, then it has to pass to the liver. And there's different pathways of metabolism in the liver. So if it goes down the wrong pathway, it might come back to bite you. So again, I like both. I like creams. They're easy to titrate the dosage. They're easy to apply. You know, if you got gut issues, they're not going to absorb very well if you take them orally. And a lot of women have gut issues.
Ladies and gentlemen out there, there's no way Debbie can cover everything, but it is very, very enlightening to know help is on its way. You don't have to suffer. And whether it's perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, it's worth checking out, because there could be simple little things that you could do to not only just feel better, but like you said, it's even helpful to your bone. Like, it's not even like
your bones, your cardiovascular system, and your brain. You know, these are the things that we worry about as we get older. And you know what? Our healthcare system, I'm not bashing it completely. I know here in Canada it's really tough even to get a doctor, but there's no focus on preventative health. It's let's wait for the wheels to fall off the bus and then we're going to change things, you know?
I get it.
It's unfortunate. It really is. But there's so many things we have to take, you know, responsibility for our own health. And part of that is being proactive and, you know, education, learning about your body. You know, what options are there for me? Do I need an antidepressant, or do I need hormones? You know, and there's just so many little tweaks we can do to make you feel better. But always.
And I love that you said, because some women don't think about that. You know, they think, okay, I've been through perimenopause, I've been through menopause, like, okay, now I'm good to go. They're not thinking, okay, now I'm 63 and there's stuff I could do, or in my 80s, like you said. You know?
Oh, right. I mean, you might, if you're not, maybe in your 60s, you've gone through menopause and you're not symptomatic, but, you know, maybe it's been a little draggy. You don't have the energy you would like to have. You know, is there a family history of osteoporosis that you have to be preventative, but you don't want to get to that point? Or do you have a risk factor for osteoporosis? You know, cardiovascular disease. Is there cardiovascular disease in your family? You know, do I have to do something extra to, you know, preventive, you know, cardiovascular disease? Still, the number one killer of males and females is cardiovascular disease. But, you know, being proactive is just important. Diet is important. You know, making sure you get enough fiber in your diet. You know, getting away from the processed food, the high glycemic foods, the processed foods is killing us. You know, look at the rate of diabetes in North America. It's just crazy. You never used to see type 2 diabetes in young people. You know, it's there. But
and you're right. You're right. You have to be proactive for yourself, like many other things, and your health. You can't just rely on the doctors. Now, there are some amazing ones out there, and I have happened to meet them, and they get it. But that being said, I have to make sure I take care of myself and research and find those. And a lot of people's insurance doesn't cover that, you know,
Right.
so it's very
Right.
tricky.
Yeah. It is
Very
tricky.
tricky.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because, you know, money is a factor a lot of times when it comes to health.
Yeah.
It just is. It truly is. It's just, I don't know what.
But there's a lot of things you can do. There's a lot of things you can do. Right. Well, Debbie Brown, I'm so glad. We got to go. I'm so glad we figured this out. It's been one of my favorite segments, and we've never, ever touched on anything like this before. So thank you so much. There's so many different things that I know people can look into and go after immediately. But before we go, maybe we should tell them how we can find you.
Okay. I have a website called thehormonenurse.com. So thehormonenurse.com. And my email is debbie@thehormonenurse.com. So, you know, even if you want to reach out with a question to me, I mean, I get a number of emails a day, and usually I can answer them by the end of the day. If it's a simple question, you know, just reach out. You know, my consultations, when I do a consultation, they're anywhere from 60 minutes to 90 minutes, but I don't mind anybody just drop me an email and say, what do you think about A, B, or C? You know, I'm not going to give you medical advice. I'll give you my opinion, but I won't give you medical advice. Okay. But
I love that. And we're going to end on, hey, I got something to say, people. You are not, I'm going to repeat it, you are not meant to suffer. Until next time, you know what I'm going to say. Toodles. Bye, Debbie. Thank you.
Bye, Sunny. It was a pleasure. Bye-bye.